Welcome again at the Capgemini live stage at the Mobile World Congress 2023. We have a unique and big panel ready for you. And so without further ado, I'd like to give the word to Pierre Fortier, who will introduce the panel.
Thank you so much. So it's a huge pleasure to be here today, and a huge pleasure for me because there's quite an incredible panel of speakers today to talk about the future of mission-critical communications. And it's a huge pleasure also because when you work on technology and telco, like I've been doing my whole career, you're after those types of topics, topics which change lives, tech for good, and this is what it's all about. What are we talking about here in this session? We're going to talk about the first responders, policemen, fire brigades, ambulances, who go on in the field and try to save lives to protect us. So what do they need? They need critical communications. They need ways to communicate with each other, communicate with control command centers. And those critical communications are at an absolute turning point. For decades, they've been based on PMR technologies, and they're now evolving towards 4G and 5G with MCX. This is a true revolution which will bring multimedia services and will enhance the situation awareness in case of crisis. This trend is accelerating quite fast. There's a lot of big projects that are being launched. I think all public safety authorities are either planning or starting this journey. So it's a big topic, and it's a huge pleasure for me to welcome on stage Monsieur le Préfet Lambert, who's the head of the Réseau Radio du Futur program in France, Simon Franken, the CEO of Freshwave, Manuel Riz, who's the head of critical communications for Ericsson, Selim Bouri, who's the vice president of Airbus SLC for Africa, Middle East, and APAC, Fotis Karonis, who's Capgemini EVP and group leader for 5G and Edge, and Javier Rius, who's the head of Rescat and part of the government of Catalonia. So quite a strong lineup of speakers to talk about this topic. And to introduce it, I would like us to maybe zoom a little bit on one of those big programs, which is Réseau Radio du Futur, RF in France. So I'll turn over to you, Monsieur le Préfet, so that you can maybe give us some explanations about why France decided to launch this program. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So why I've chosen to launch the RRF initiative in France? As you know, as in many countries, the daily operation.
No, it's okay.
Sorry, yeah, we have to move. No, it's okay. No? Oh, okay. So we currently use narrowband networks to sustain the day-to-day operation of our first responder. We use the tetraport technology. It is technology that was developed at the very beginning of the 90s. It is a quite reliable and good technology. The problem is it shows some limits. One of the triggering events in France to launch the idea of evolving toward 4G and 5G technology were the terrorist attacks in Paris in 2015. You know, we have that year two big attacks, one in January, the other one in November. And during these attacks, the government became aware of the limits of the narrowband communication networks. These networks prevent us from doing the advanced services such as IoT, data exchanges, video streaming, and so on. So that was the triggering event that launched the project. And now we are in the middle of it. The project was officially launched by the French Ministry of Interior last September. And for 4 months now, we start building this solution.
So can you tell us a little bit about the specifics of the approach followed by the French Ministry of Interior in developing this RF program?
Yeah, before launching this initiative, we pay attention to the different options when, what are the possibility to build such a network. And the option we selected is the full MVNO approach, as you can see on the picture. The advantage of such a solution is that it is fast to deploy. It is well known by the MNOs, so it is mature. It is a connection between MNOs and full MVNOs is a very current operation nowadays, and it allows to have control over the critical technical part of the solution. So in the RRF, we will store the RRF core network within the MOI premises, and we will operate directly this core network and connect it to different MNOs. The other advantage is that through this core network, we have the connection to the radio access network of several operators. So in France, RRF will be connected to the radio access network of Orange and Bouygues Telecom with QPP, with quality of service, priority and preemption mechanism. And we also take the precaution to make it compulsory for the other operator to give us access to their network through what we call national roaming. So national roaming is compulsory. That is to say that one RF end users will have access to the coverage of the 4 MNOs. So that give them the reliability to have 4G coverage in almost every part of France.
So of course, launching those programs, it's a challenge, it's a journey. Can you elaborate a little bit on some of the challenges to roll out this type of major transformation program?
The first challenge we faced is to give confidence in the technology. For years we used this PMR technology, and it is a revolution to evolve on an LTE-based technology. That's a revolution, and the role and the business model of the approach is quite different, because you have to share the responsibility of delivering the services with partners, with MNOs, with industrial partners, and you will provide your first responders with a mass market technology that is a smartphone. So the first thing is to convince your political decision makers that it is the right choice. Second challenge is to get the money, because it has a cost. RRF will cost, for 7 years, 900 millions. So you have to get the money. And the issue is that you still have to run the former narrowband PMR solution. It has a cost. And you must switch from one technology to the other, and to reduce the cost of the first, to increase the capacity of financing the second option. So that's quite a challenge. So you have to, write many, many notes to the top-ranking officials in order to convince them that first it is the right technology of the future, technology that can sustain evolution, for in the next year with 5G, with say 6G, 5G NTN, and so on, and that it will be adopted by the first responder.
Thank you, Monsieur le Préfet. I suggest that you all can sit now, and I'll turn over to maybe Xavier Rius from Rescat here in Catalonia to ask you maybe a similar question. How are you managing and how are you working on this transition from PMR technologies towards 4G and 5G?
Well, there is a not simple answer, because it depends the evolution to 3GPP technology in the next 5 years. Now it's a different situation to France. It's more slow, the transition. Now we have we consider that a network to 98 Catalonia territory is covered by Tetra technology. Now there are 300 Tetra base stations. It's for a situation, the network around the 29,000 users. Okay, our strategy is levered in 3 cases. The first, it's I would consider migrate to 5G, but it's important for us. It's not the users. It's tested in the field this technology. Now they have a hybrid combination because have use the commercial networks to video streaming, but not to voice. For us, it's important that users verify and apply a real use case in the field. Okay. Before migrate the data services, for us it's very important to the 5G technology. There are native and there are ecosystem to easy migrate. There are a small network with compared with countries from France, Germany. I need the ecosystem with this technology. It's increased because it's a risk for migrate if no have the manufacturers real products. There are a limitation with the band frequency in Spain, only a 5 megahertz. This is a very important limitation for high definition video streaming in real time. And I need to iterate the solution. I need not only the private network, need to combine it, the solution with the commercial network. But the problem in Catalonia, there are a very rural areas, it's the coverage to a commercial network. And this is the point to decide what is the start migration. For us, we'd consider the not before 26 start to migrate or deploy it one part of networks. It's different. It's very expensive to change the technology because there are a lot of small fleets. There are Mossos, it's a big police to use the network, but there are a lot of small cities to use the network. And it is difficult to organize this migration with all of users. But now there are explored, there are by tactical cell to start to a real use case in the field. Thank you.
Yeah, it's super interesting to hear from like bigger country and a smaller region. We can see that the challenges are not necessarily the same. Maybe I'll turn to Simon. You also have experience in working on those large scale transformation towards 4G, 5G. How does what we just heard resonate with your own experience?
Yeah, I was at the leadership of the ESN program, the Emergency Services Network program in the UK, and was involved running that for BTE for 3.5 years. I think as you already said, the most important thing is to take the end users, the emergency services, on the journey with you. So to make sure that they understand the benefits up front, to make sure that they're thinking already about adapting the way they work, their operational processes to the new technology that they have, because this is not just a cut and paste replacement for an old technology. There's a huge amount more they can do. But if they just use the communication system for voice in exactly the same way they use Tetra, they won't get the same benefits that they would do otherwise. I think then beyond that, there are some quite big differences. Certainly, there are some quite big differences for us compared to thinking about consumers of 4G and 5G. One thing is that the different needs of different parts of the emergency services are enormous. So, the difference between, for example, medical first responders who have a very, very high requirement for data compared to, for example, fire and rescue who mainly use voice. All of that needs to be taken into consideration because there's some huge differences between the different customer sets. And also the requirement for local knowledge is very, very important. Generally, telcos, MVNOs are set up to think about an overall network and aggregated performance. Really, first responders are only interested in the performance in the immediate area in which they operate in. They're really not interested in the rest of the country. They just want to know about their suburb or their village or wherever it is. So there's some really big differences to consider and lots to learn. But
And what are some of the new services that we can expect for those end users?
Well, I mean, the first thing to think about is actually, and very different to all the evolutions of mobile technology. Every one of these users is already a smartphone user. So we can get hung up about all the new things they can do, but actually, every time, and I spent a lot of time with emergency services. Every time I've been in a police car or in a fire engine, the first responders are using their personal smartphones alongside their radio anyway, right? So the first thing is security, because you're bringing all the things they do in their day-to-day life, Google Maps, WhatsApp, all the applications that they use on commercial networks into a secure environment and onto a controlled network. But then beyond that, I think, as I say, adapting operational processes so you can bring technologies like artificial intelligence and all the different technologies you see here developing, predictive technologies. I mean, that's an enormous benefit in the future.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll turn to Salim. Same. Airbus obviously is a historic player in the field of secure communications and now a leader in the area of MCX over 4G, 5G. So how do you manage, how do you accompany your clients in managing this transition from Tetra PMR technologies towards 4G, 5G?
So I think, yeah, Simon covered some of the points. It's really about, and Monsieur le Préfet, it's about building trust with the end users. Because at the end of the day, we cannot disturb the way their tactical operations, their tactical procedures. We need to adapt to them. So our approach is really to go gradually, step by step, an evolution rather than a revolutions. So put an application layer, you're gonna unify different networks, the existing PMR, the new one. It's not only about bringing new services, but it's also about using better many services that are already here. So you will have the voice that is, and I believe will remain the killer app, if I may. You have a lot of information coming from CCTV networks, from IoT sensors, from artificial intelligence. What will be key here is to actually integrate all of this together, make them they are secured, make them there is maybe some artificial intelligence and other topics, gain the confidence of the end users on the usage of the networks. They will start using the same services. So voice, we need to integrate also, make sure they can communicate, the network can communicate with each other, the new one, the old one, the legacy one. With the evolution, the more they gain confidence on the usage, the more they will come up with naturally, on a very safe way, with new applications. It will come from them, not from us. We'll come with them. With some, we'll make sure they can use them, we'll integrate it. So you can imagine having your voice discussion between one personnel who will have a PMR, the other a smartphone, artificial intelligence behind it that will automatically detect some words, sensor information that will automatically create a group call, integrate CCTV feeds, even satellite feeds. We do some of this at Airbus. And all together, it will generate this new usage, this new approach, and will make sure that the end users that are here to save our life at the end of the day can focus on that mission first.
So in any case, those public safety authorities will have to manage for a number of years the coexistence between the legacy systems and the new ones.
That's for me the key. You cannot stop and ask everyone to change from one day to another. You need to allow the end users to continue use their terminals and gradually switch on a natural way. Sometimes you may push, you may go gradually, you may start with some regions, you may start with some services. And the more they go, the more they trust it, the more they will switch from one to another. But I believe at a certain moment, the PMR network will never disappear. It will just become an additional application of the 4G network.
Maybe a question for Manuel. What we see at the moment is mostly evolution towards MCX over 4G. But then 5G is coming and will come. What do you think, in your view, what will 5G add next to this area of mission critical communications?
Perfect. Yes, when we think about public safety, and at the end there is a big decision. It's moving from narrowband to 4G, 5G, even 6G, as Professor Lambert was mentioning before, right? It's a journey, it's a decision to move into 3GPP technologies. And when we think about communication technologies, what we are doing with 3GPP, the 4G, the 5Gs, and the next to come cannot be matched with other capabilities, other communication technologies, even the level of investment. But what we see is like, it's a step by step. So then we see the first step is moving from LMR, from PMR to 4G. There are some use cases that we see are the one coming is about the push to talk, being able to use the voice, some coexistence with existing applications, some gateways, being able to access to data, some data applications that the public safety they can use as well. And then the next step is moving to 5G. So then 5G, the first thing that brings is enhanced broadband. That means more broadband to create more applications. And then when we go to full 5G, it's about low, very low latency. That means that could allow applications, for example, like controlling robots from the distance. So then for very dangerous applications, it can be used. We can think about augmented reality as well. When it's about maintenance, when it's about reconnaissance, it can be used. And then will come 6G. And we don't know which are the use cases that it will bring. But the end is the decision to move to this 3GPP big wave of technology that we're discussing here.
And maybe another question for you. Monsieur le Préfet explained that in France, there's the full MVNO model, and we know that there's different options taken here and there. But a lot of those options, what they have in common is that they rely on the public telcos. So what, in your view, is the role of the public network operators in managing this transition towards for public safety?
Yeah, if you asked me this question 10 years ago, I would say, well, perhaps they don't have a role. But I think we have seen through these 10 years that first they are getting interest and they are getting a very important role. Where we see around the world that operators they are having a key role here. Could be there are countries that they decide to have dedicated spectrum with dedicated network, complete dedicated network. Even in those cases, they decide in most of them the operator to manage for them. But then we see that a clear asset that the operators they have is the spectrum and is the network. So then, as Prefet Lambert was mentioning in the case of France, perhaps building a complete network, having the spectrum, it's a big investment. Depending on your country, do the operators have enough capabilities? Do they have a good network, good enough for the government to use, for public safety to use? So then we see this clear step. And then depending on the model, there are some hybrid models. They see like, well, operators, in addition to provide assets, they can help to upgrade the network. What about this transition to 5G, to 6G? So in operators, they are very capable of doing those things. So we see more and more operators to become part, and we see mainly in Europe that this is happening already, as the case of France.
Thank you. Maybe I'll turn to Fotis. So Fotis, we're seeing a growing maturity of all of those evolution of public safety towards 4G, towards 5G. It's accelerating. Can you maybe comment and give your perspective on this acceleration?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, it's an enormous sense of purpose, this type of this project that saves people's lives and also protects the users themselves from the dangerous situations. I would start by saying that it's a business transformation as well as a technology transformation. So we need to be cognizant of what are those processes that in the new generation of users are required and ensure that the project has got that big dimension as well. The other one is about reliability and security. So we talked about the roles of the MNOs and so on. We should think about also all the other IT systems, and the overall architecture should be robust, because when those users need it, it's the moment that are in most needing situations. And therefore the architecture has to be as robust as possible across the piece. It's not just about the network robustness, but it's about the applications, the services, etc. So the importance of the end-to-end architecture of that ecosystem, which is very complex, is to ensure that there is security. There are new types of threats coming from the external services, because we're moving into the data world. So should be cognizant that we need to protect the whole infrastructure from external things. And of course, bringing all the ecosystem together. This is a project of multiple decades, right? It's not a project of a year or 2 or 3. So it should be always reliable, and there should be no points of failure of this, because at the moment that the person is in danger and he's pressing the button that I am in risk, it should absolutely work 100%. And that is the critical part of our companies that work together to get that happen.
And another question, we got the perspective of MCX providers, equipment providers. We talked about the telcos. What's the role, in your view, Fotis, of the system integrators in helping this transition?
So the importance of the system integrator is to ensure that that the whole system is working together. We bring the whole ecosystem together. It's a very complex ecosystem, from IT services, data centers, security, as we said, is a very big contribution. BSS because the users need to collaborate. So it has to be a very user-friendly. The ownership of the system is the users. It's the frontline people. They own the system, so they have to be completely. It should be part of them, part of their, themselves, basically. And therefore, the role of the integrator is to do that outside in as well as inside out integration, and ensure that the all these new devices, for example, that the 5G you talked about, we have face recognition for intrusion alarm, drones that need to discover people that are somewhere outside, and we need to recognize if there is person is in need of, in a crisis. We should think about what's going on in Europe as well, where there's big fires, climate change, and countries are collaborating between each other. So these systems should be thinking about what's coming up in Horizon 1, Horizon 2, because people need to collaborate. It's not just about the national part, it's about the cross-border communication as well. And that has to have the same number of resilience, and the applications should be understood one to the other.
Maybe a question for you, Monsieur le Préfet. So Selim, Simon, all of you talked about the importance of bringing the end user to center stage, like the user centricity. How are you planning to do it as part, or have you done it already as part of the RF program?
Yeah, it is native to the program. Before we launched officially the program, they were the first responder were part of it. They asked for it. We achieved some experimentation on the field. We have a first experience in France with this 4G technology through the PC Storm project. PC Storm was dedicated to the tactical unit of the police and the gendarmerie, and we use this first experience of this M6 4G technology to share it with other, part of the public safety services, such as firefighters, ambulance services, and so on. And so they experienced the system, and they help us to specify the RRF features. And now they are, totally involved in designing the project. They collaborate with us within our team, in front of the companies such as Capgemini or Airbus, to define the the features of the M6 application. They have a right to tell us things about the way the technology we will put at their disposal shall work. And with Airbus, we provide them with the smartphones, the smartphone of the market, of the contract, and we use what we call a V0, for test beta, for beta testing, and we launched this beta testing application on the smartphone of the project 2 months after launching the contract. And a few days ago, we gathered all the first responders in the premises of the Ministry of Interior to plan some new testing, and in order to accustom them with new technology. So the first responder, the public safety services, are key to the success of the project.
And maybe Selim, maybe we'll comment on that. What we've seen also from experience is that it's not only about the smartphones and the networks, it's also all of the accessories that are used by those very different services. So can you comment on that maybe?
It is about accessory, it is about integrating, it's about integration, about convergence. Many things are used, but with the different terminals, different handsets, different networks, different systems. The whole concept here is put it all together, convergence, so that the end user have access to all this information that are available, but through one channel, secured, converged. We have today, with this evolution to 4G or 5G, the pipe that is big enough to put all of these things together and share them. So it's come with a new generation of dispatching, it's come with a new generation of organization. We're not going to change from day one the organization and the tactics, but again here, this is come with the time, the moment the end user feel confident enough and they gain the acceptance of it, then they will drive it. We do also this, it comes with a lot of integration and a lot of customizations. The new generation of applications can be customized much more than before. And we have again here the bandwidth to do it. So this is key.
And it is important to make this regular testing in realistic conditions. You know, that's very key to what we developed in the RF program.
Maybe a question for Manuel. To some extent, public safety is the first type of users at scale, at large scale, of mission critical communications. But they're not the only one. There's other in other industries. Maybe can you comment on this evolution and what you're seeing?
No, exactly. And it's a very interesting trend right now. So then when we think about public safety, we started was roughly 10 years ago to modify the standards to put all these high reliability, high security into the 4G networks, 5G networks, that they were not needed for commercials. But then thanks to the success that is happening in public safety, and it's not just about the technology, it's also about the ecosystem, because technology is not enough. We need the ecosystem with devices, with applications. Thanks to this, other government agencies or critical industries, such as utility and rail, they are also going towards 4G and 5G. So we see utilities very interesting as well. In some cases, they have PMR. In other cases, they have different kinds of communications altogether working. So they are moving to 4G as well, 4G, 5G. We see rail, a lot of discussion, how they are going to migrate for the existing technology they have today called GSMR to 5G for rail, that is called FRMCS. So then we see all this trend. And this is very interesting, not just for them, but also for the whole government critical community, because it's going to create the mass, the criticality, right? At the end, to get the attention of other industries, to get the attention of new devices, to get the attention of new applications, we need to have a critical mass of users that will complement what is happening already with public safety.
Anyone else want to comment on this question? Yeah.
Sorry, on the ecosystem?
No, on the inspiration of public safety for other sectors with this mission critical.
Yes, I've been working in airports for a long time in my career. These are national infrastructures. We should think about national infrastructures. There is a lot of critical processes that are in railway, in ports, airports, larger, chemical plants, etc. And I think the combination of reliable public networks of 4G and 5G together with private networks as well enable the usage of MCX, into those critical infrastructures, and in a multiple site environment. I think these are the things that actually drive the same type of ecosystems, the same type of applications and devices that, to your point, Emmanuel, it gives a bit of a size of the ecosystem so that you have, longer periods of cycles and reusability. But as we see, everybody's using smartphones, right? So that's something that is going across. You can't work around with 2 or 3 devices. Yeah.
Monsieur le Préfet, as part of RF, there will also be a challenge to do the integration with those national critical infrastructure operators, right?
Sure. When listening at Fotis, it is what our friend from South Korea achieved in their country with the SafeNet project. SafeNet project is to put at the disposal of public safety, railway operators and maritime operators the same technology through SafeNet, and to use M6 solution to deliver reliable communication and networks. So I do believe that it will be the case in Europe as well.
Thank you. Maybe now it's time to take some questions from the audience. Peter, I was
Peter
waiting for you.
Clements for the first question.
Okay, I tend to be loud anyway. Okay, so this is a maybe technical question, but I think an important question. Do you think that it is possible to deploy large-scale public safety communications networks without multicast capability? I know the answer, but I'm interested to hear what yours is.
Anyone want to comment on that? Maybe Manuel or...
No, at the end, and we have talked a lot about the user that at the end needs to be the center here, right? So then at the end, we see, depending on the cases, on the country, on the operational cases, multicast is going to be needed or is not going to be needed, depending what is the availability of the frequency they have from the operator in case that they use operator, or the bandwidth they have if they have dedicated spectrum. We see a trend, major trend using multicast, but again, it will require it will depend on the requirements of the government, specific country.
Thank you. Any other question?
Peter, I can.
In Catalonia, there are a very small private, and it's important to multicast and to implant multicast because don't have sufficient broadband to work the high definition video. It's important the manufacturers to implement the solution for us because if not implemented multicast, it need a lot to validate the network to a commercial network.
Peter, I was going to say you've asked me this question before, so I'll give you the same answer that I gave you last time, which is, as you know, in the UK we did multiple extensive simulations and trials to prove that it was possible. There's an essential difference between a tetra network with narrow bandwidth and a limited amount of spectrum, and the densification of mobile networks, 4G networks, particularly where you're doing national roaming as there are in France, where you have the benefit of even more spectrum. So I think the answer to your question is yes.
Anyone else has a question?
My name is Mark. Thanks once again for the speech. Just one question. Just like that gentleman mentioned, EMBMS is one of the feature. Yeah, and I think for mission critical point of view, there's also some other feature. For example, the proxy, yeah, like the direct mode that we are looking for, and also, for example, some other isolated operation for the public safety. So I would say that those are critical for end users. In terms of the application development, everything can be corroborated and then to build a very fancy or perfect platform. But I would say maybe in the force point of view, no matter in the public safety, the supplier, would there be any joint force as well to really push these features together? Because from time to time, we heard about release 15, 16, 17, all these milestones to have the product. But how can I say in the product availability point of view is not ready, for example. So how could this be like a kind of joint force, no matter in the end user point of view or supplier point of view, to really have the product be available in the market? I think this is very important. Thank you
for the question.
I will start part of it, then I will pass probably to the manufacturer. But it's a bit linked to it before. The critical mass will, of course, give more volume, so it will push the manufacturers, the developers, and everything to put more features around public safety. We are seeing that actually. One of the comments of what was done before is, for example, public safety and critical network. We think only about public safety users, but in Asia or in Middle East, 50% of the users of public safety networks are actually industries. So we are getting there. You don't have to stop your Tetra or PMR or Tetrapol or whatever when you move. So all the feature you have, you can keep. And this is why key to integrate, because the transition will happen gradually. But don't stop what is working. Continue use it, integrate it, and complement it, and enhance it. As per the MBMS, maybe you know better than me.
Perhaps in the general question, right? When we think about the narrowband technology and we think now about the 4G and the 5G, not all the features are the same. So then I think I go back to the end users at the end, right? The end user to public safety is which are the operational needs that they have. Today, there are things that they fix with direct mode, but there are other ways of fixing these problems. So then at the end, it's like going to the need and which are the ways how 4G, 5G technology can solve that. For example, tactical bubbles or things like this, right? So then at the end, I have seen like some focus in which are the one by one the features that Tetra is providing today, or Tetrapol or P25 is providing today. So there are other ways of solving the problems.
Just very quickly, I mean, enhanced broadband services is something that is the future, I would say, for mission critical. So if I see a mission critical, I would say the vision would be it's a platform play that you get the basics right, you get your all these services that we are going, and then on top we add all the different applications that are required. So if it's like, sending a drone, getting that, vision from on the ground, doing AI analytics to see what is the ground movements and things like that, sending that, collaborating with edge computing together with my MNO, all these things are absolutely possible with release 15 and beyond. We need to be prepared to add on these features and collaborate with an ecosystem of application providers as well, to make these potential use cases industrialized so that they can be used in a moment of crisis. So that is something that is either in the sort of state services or in infrastructure services. These are use cases that, of course, are in the horizon. Absolutely in the next phase.
And perhaps one comment here, because I think it's very relevant what you said. 4G, 5G, 6G is not something static. So they are continuous releases. That means that's a moving technology. So that's key to have the feedback of the end users, of the governments, of public safety, know which are the needs that they have and how to implement that in the future releases, because it's moving. Now it's release 16, 17, 18. Those are the discussions that we're having today. And we have implemented mission critical features since very early in the releases. So then at the end, that will continue, and we expect those needs to be implemented as well.
So thank you so much. I think it's time to wrap up. You've certainly given us a lot to think about. We can see that there's really a major trend, lots of dynamics, and we can all hope to see a lot of more in the next few years. Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending.